The quarterly board meeting was scheduled for Thursday at 10 a.m. I prepared the financial analysis section as I had for the past 18 months. Revenue trends, cost analysis, profitability projections, operational efficiency metrics. 32 slides of detailed financial modeling that informed the board's strategic decisions. Wednesday afternoon, my manager David Sullivan asked to see my presentation deck. Just want to make sure everything's aligned with the overall narrative before tomorrow. I sent him the file. Thursday morning, an hour before the board meeting, David's assistant forwarded me the final consolidated deck that would be presented to the board. I opened it and immediately noticed something wrong. My financial analysis section was there, all 32 slides, all my charts and models, all my charts, my insights and recommendations. But my name was gone. Every slide that had previously shown financial analysis by Elena Martinez, Senior Financial Analyst, now just said Financial Analysis. Finance Department. The detailed models I'd built over weeks showed prepared by finance team instead. Out of my name. Even the executive summary slide that highlighted key findings attributed them to Finance Department analysis with no individual credit. They'd kept my work but erased my name from it. I walked to David's office. He was reviewing notes for the board presentation. David, I just saw the final deck. My name was removed from all the financial analysis slides I prepared. Elena, we decided to present the work as a department effort rather than highlighting individual contributors. It's more professional for board presentations. I've been credited with these presentations for 18 months. Every previous board deck showed my name on the sections I prepared. What changed? Richard felt that individual attribution was creating a hierarchy that didn't reflect how the finance team works collaboratively. Richard Morrison was our new CFO, hired 6 months ago. He brought a very different management style, more centralized control, less individual visibility, credit flowing upward to leadership rather than being distributed to the people doing the actual work. David, this isn't about hierarchy. This is about accurately representing who did the work. I spent 3 weeks building these models. The board relies on this analysis for major decisions. They, wine, should know who's responsible for it. The department is responsible for it. That's what we're communicating. The department didn't build the revenue forecasting model. I did. The department didn't analyze the cost structure trends. I did. Taking my name off work I actually performed isn't professional presentation. It's erasure. Elena, this decision has been made. The deck has been finalized. We're presenting in 45 minutes. I left David's office feeling a cold anger settling in my chest. This wasn't just about credit or ego. This was about a pattern I'd noticed over the past 6 months. Richard systematically removing individual visibility from anyone who wasn't part of his immediate circle, while ensuring his own name appeared prominently on any work product. That went to senior leadership or the board. Before I tell you what happened in that board meeting, I need you to understand something about this moment. This wasn't about whether my name appeared on slides. It was about a larger pattern of leadership taking credit for work performed by people below them. Erasing individual contributions to create the appearance that all valuable work flows from senior management. If you've ever had your name removed from work you created, if you've ever watched leadership present your analysis as department work while taking personal credit for outcomes, if you've ever been made invisible so someone above you, look more impressive, stay with me. Because what happened when the board noticed my name was missing before I could even raise the issue changed everything about Richard's strategy. My name is Elena Martinez, and I'd been a senior financial analyst at Meridian Technologies for 4 years. I'd joined straight out of graduate school with an MBA in finance and had quickly become the go-to person for complex financial modeling, cost analysis, and strategic financial planning. My work was technical and detailed, building revenue forecasting models, analyzing operational efficiency, projecting profitability under different scenarios, identifying cost optimization opportunities. The kind of analysis that doesn't make headlines but that informs every major business decision. For the first 3.5 years, my contributions had been recognized and credited. When I built a revenue forecasting model that predicted a market downturn 6 months before it happened, my name was on the analysis that went to the executive team. When I identified cost inefficiencies that saved $2.30 million annually, I presented those findings directly to the board. My work had visibility. The board knew my name. They asked me questions directly during presentations. They trusted my analysis because they knew who was behind it. Then Richard Morrison became CFO 6 months ago. Richard had a very different philosophy about how finance should operate. He believed in centralized control, standardized processes, and presenting a unified finance department voice rather than highlighting individual contributors. Within his first month, Richard had restructured how we prepared board materials. Instead of individual analysts presenting their own work, everything now went through department heads who consolidated and presented. Finance speaks with one voice was Richard's mantra. The problem was that one voice increasingly meant Richard's voice, or David's voice as my direct manager, but not the voices of the people actually doing the analysis. Over 6 months, I had watched my visibility steadily diminish. First, I stopped presenting directly to the board. David presented my work instead. Then my name moved from primary attribution to a small credit line at the bottom of slides. Now, apparently, my name was being removed entirely. The board meeting started at 10 a.m. I wasn't invited to attend. Only CFO, department heads, and select senior managers were in the room. I went back to my desk to continue working on next quarter's forecasting model. At 11:47 a.m., I got a Slack message from David. Can you come to the executive conference room immediately? The board has questions about the financial analysis. I grabbed my laptop and notes and headed to the conference room. Inside were the 5 board members, Richard, David, and our CEO, Sarah Chen. One of the board members, Dr. Patricia Wong, was looking at the presentation deck on the large screen with a puzzled expression. Elena, Sarah said as I entered. Thank you for joining us. Dr. Wong has some questions about the revenue forecasting model. Dr. Ryan. Wong turned to me. Elena, I was just noting that this financial analysis section is excellent. The revenue model accounts for variables I haven't seen in previous presentations, seasonality adjustments, market segment growth rates, customer cohort retention patterns. This is sophisticated modeling. Thank you, Dr. Wong. But I noticed something odd. The slides say this was prepared by finance department with no individual attribution. In previous presentations, your name was prominently featured on this type of analysis. Did you work on this, or was this done by someone else? Before I could answer, Richard spoke up. Dr. Wong, we've moved to department-level attribution to reflect that our work is collaborative. I'm asking Elena, Dr. Wong interrupted. Elena, did you build this revenue forecasting model? Yes. I built the model over the past 3 weeks, incorporating the variables you mentioned, plus some additional factors around competitive dynamics and regulatory changes that affect our market. And the cost structure analysis? The operational efficiency metrics? The profitability projections under different scenarios? All my work. I prepared the entire financial analysis section of this presentation. Dr. Wong looked at Richard. Why was Elena's name removed from her work? As I was saying, we've implemented department-level attribution. That's not what I asked. Previous board decks showed Elena's name on her analysis sections. This deck removes her name while keeping her work. That's not collaborative attribution. That's erased. The room went quiet. I could see Richard's jaw tighten. Another board member, Michael Chen, spoke up. I noticed the same thing. The quality of this financial analysis is what I've come to expect from Elena's work. Thorough, insightful, well-documented. But if I hadn't worked with this company for 2 years and didn't already know Elena's capabilities, I would have no idea who produced this analysis. That's problematic. The finance department produced it, Richard started. No, Michael interrupted. Elena produced it. The finance department employs Elena. There's a difference. When we make decisions based on financial analysis, I want to know who built the models and who stands behind the conclusions. Finance department is too vague. Elena's name tells me something about the credibility and quality of the work. Sarah, our CEO, looked uncomfortable. Richard, perhaps we should discuss the attribution approach. With respect, Dr. Wong said. I don't think this requires discussion. Either individuals are credited for work they perform, or leadership is taking credit for work done by people who report to them. The latter is unethical and creates misattribution of accountability. She turned to me. Elena, over the past 18 months, how many board presentations have included financial analysis sections you prepared? 6 quarterly presentations plus 3 special board meetings where financial analysis was requested. And in many of those presentations was your work attributed to you by name? The first 8. This is the first presentation where my name was removed. What changed between presentation 8 and presentation 9? I hesitated. This was dangerous territory, directly implicating my CFO in front of the board. Dr. Wong saw my hesitation. Elena, I'm asking a factual question about what changed in presentation process. Please answer directly. Richard became CFO 6 months ago. He implemented a new approach to board materials, where individual attribution was replaced with department attribution. And in those 6 months, has the quality or sophistication of the financial analysis sections declined? No, D. If anything, the analysis has become more detailed and comprehensive. So Richard implemented a policy that removes individual credit for high-quality work, while the quality of that work remains strong or improved. That suggests the policy isn't about quality or collaboration. It's about controlling credit attribution. Richard's expression had gone from uncomfortable to angry. Dr. Wong, I don't appreciate the implication. I'm not implying anything. I'm stating directly that removing Elena's name from Elena's work is inappropriate. The board relies on financial analysis to make decisions about company strategy, investments, and governance. We need to know who's behind that analysis. Anonymous finance department attribution obscures accountability and misleads us about the source of the insights we're relying on. Sarah intervened. I think we should table this discussion and address it separately. No, Dr. Wong said firmly. This isn't a minor process issue. This is about ethical attribution of work and accurate representation to the board. If Richard has implemented a policy that systematically removes credit from the people actually doing analytical work, board needs to understand why and whether that policy serves the company's interests. Michael Chen added, I agree with Patricia. Over the past 6 months, I've noticed a shift in how finance work is presented. Previously, we knew who built the models and who conducted the analysis. That created direct accountability. Now, everything is attributed to departments or finance teams, which diffuses accountability and makes it harder to assess who's actually contributing value. A third board member, James Liu, who'd been quiet until now, spoke up. This isn't just about Elena. If this is a broader pattern, removing individual attribution while leadership takes credit, that's a cultural problem. Companies that don't credit individual contributors create environments where talented people leave because their work is invisible. Sarah looked at Richard. Richard, I think the board is raising valid concerns. Can you explain the rationale for the attribution change? The rationale is creating a unified finance department voice and reducing internal competition for credit? That's corporate speak, Dr. Wong interrupted. The actual effect is removing visibility from people doing substantive work, while department heads present that work as if it emerged from their leadership rather than their analysts' effort. That's not unification. That's misattribution. The meeting continued for another 30 minutes with the board pressing Richard on the attribution policy and its implementation. I sat quietly, answering direct questions but otherwise letting the board members make the case themselves. Finally, Dr. Wong made a formal request. Sarah, I'd like finance leadership to revert to individual attribution for substantive analytical work in board materials. When Elena builds a revenue forecasting model, Elena's name should be on it. When another analyst conducts cost analysis, their name should be on it. Department heads can present the work, but the attribution should be accurate. Sarah nodded. We'll implement that going forward. Not just going forward, Michael Chen added. I'd like the current board deck revised to properly attribute Elena's work before it's filed in the official board records. The archived version should accurately reflect who prepared the analysis. We'll take care of that, Sarah agreed. The board meeting concluded. As people filed out, Dr. Wong pulled me aside. Elena, I apologize that this became a public discussion. I know that puts you in a difficult position with your CFO. Dr. Wong, I appreciate you raising the issue. I wasn't sure if I should speak up or if it would seem like I was just complaining about credit. You shouldn't have had to speak up. Leadership should ensure accurate attribution without being prompted. The fact that Richard implemented a policy specifically removing credit from contributors is concerning. It suggests either insecurity about his own contributions or a deliberate strategy to obscure where value is actually created. I've noticed over 6 months that Richard presents work to executives and the board but rarely credits the analysts who built it. It, Warren, creates the impression that all valuable financial insight comes from him. That's a problem. Not just for you, but for the company. Talented people leave when their contributions are made invisible. And boards can't effectively govern if we don't know who's behind the analysis we're relying on. She paused. Elena, if you ever feel that your contributions are being systematically undervalued or misattributed, you have my contact information. Board members serve as oversight not just for strategy, but for governance and culture. What happened today, removing your name from your work, is the kind of issue we need to know about. That afternoon, I received an email from Sarah Chen requesting a meeting the following morning. The subject line, Attribution Policy Discussion. In Sarah's office the next day, she got straight to the point. Elena, I want to apologize for what happened yesterday. The board was right. Removing your name from your work was inappropriate. That shouldn't have happened. I appreciate that. I also want to understand the broader context. Dr. Wong suggested this might be part of a pattern. Have there been other instances where your work was presented without proper attribution? Over the past 6 months, yes. Multiple presentations to executives where my analysis was presented by David or Richard, with no mention of my involvement. Several internal memos where my recommendations were incorporated into departmental guidance with no credit. Strategic planning documents where my financial models were used but attributed to finance team. Did you raise concerns about this? I mentioned it to David twice. He said Richard preferred department-level attribution, and that individual credit was less important than team success. But your work was individually attributed for 3.5 years before Richard arrived. What David presented as company policy was actually Richard's preference. That's my understanding. Elena, this is unacceptable. You've built sophisticated financial models that inform major business decisions. The board, the executive team, and I need to know who's behind that analysis. Obscuring your contributions doesn't serve the company. Richard believes it creates a more unified finance voice. Richard believes it centralizes credit with finance leadership. That's different from unifying the department. I'm going to be direct. Talented analysts like you have options. If your contributions aren't recognized here, you'll find organizations that do recognize them. I don't want to lose high performers because our CFO is insecure about sharing credit. What happens now? First, going forward, all substantive analytical work will include individual attribution. If you build a model, your name is on it. Second, I'm having HR review Richard's management practices to determine if this attribution issue extends to other finance team members. Third, I want to discuss your career development. You're performing at a level beyond senior analysts. We should talk about the promotion timeline. 2 weeks after the board meeting, I was called to another meeting with Sarah, this time with Dr. Wong present via video conference. Elena, Sarah started, Dr. Wong and I have been discussing your role and contributions. The board was impressed by your analysis work, and frankly, the quality of your modeling is what we'd expect from a finance manager or director, not a senior analyst. Dr. Wong continued, we'd like to offer you a promotion to finance manager with expanded responsibilities for strategic financial planning and direct presentation access to the board. Your compensation would increase to $145,000, and you'd have your own small team of analysts. Importantly, this role reports to Sarah and the board through the finance committee, not directly to Richard. I processed what I was hearing. They were promoting me and creating a reporting structure that gave me independence from the CFO who'd tried to erase my contributions. Why the separate reporting line? I asked. Sarah answered, because the board needs financial analysis that's independent of the CFO's political concerns. Richard is excellent at operational finance and department management. But strategic financial planning and board-level analysis requires someone who can present insights without filtering them through leadership preferences. That's you. Richard supported this? Richard was informed of the decision. His support wasn't required. This is a board-level decision about how we structure financial oversight. 3 months after the board meeting incident, I was presenting my first analysis directly to the board as finance manager. The presentation deck showed every slide I'd prepared with my name clearly attributed. No erasure. No department attribution. Just accurate recognition of who did the work. After the presentation, Michael Chen made a comment that summarized the change. It's remarkable how much more confidence I have in financial analysis when I know Elena is behind it. Not because the finance department couldn't do good work, but because I know Elena's track record, her methodology, and her judgment. That individual accountability matters. 6 months after the board incident, Richard left Meridian for another CFO position. Sarah told me privately that the board had lost confidence in his leadership style after the attribution issue and several other instances where Richard's management approach had created problems. The attribution incident was a signal, Sarah said. 1. It showed us that Richard was more concerned with controlling credit than developing his team. Leaders who feel threatened by talented direct reports don't last long in organizations with strong governance. A year after my name was removed from my presentation, I was promoted again to Director of Strategic Finance, reporting directly to the CEO and serving as the primary finance liaison to the board. I now oversaw all financial analysis for strategic decisions, led board presentations on financial matters, and had a team of 5 analysts. In one of my first meetings with my new team, I made a point of setting clear expectations about attribution. If you build a model, your name goes on. If you conduct analysis, you're credited for it. I will never present your work as mine or as generic teamwork. Individual contributions matter, and I'll ensure they're recognized. One of my analysts, a recent graduate named Kevin, asked a question. But what if leadership above you, ants department attribution instead of individual names? Then I push back. Because accurate attribution isn't optional, it's ethical practice. If you do the work, you get the credit. That's non-negotiable. 18 months after the board meeting, I was speaking at a finance leadership conference. My session was titled Attribution, Accountability, and Ethical Leadership in Financial Analysis. 18 months ago, I told the audience, I prepared a financial analysis for my company's board meeting. 32 slides of revenue, forecasting, cost analysis, and strategic projections. The day of the presentation, I discovered my name had been removed from all of it. My work was attributed to the finance department instead of to me. I hadn't even noticed yet. But a board member noticed. She asked directly, why was Elena's name removed from her work? That question, from a board member, not from me, started a conversation about attribution practices that ultimately led to policy changes and my promotion to finance leadership. Here's what I learned. Leaders who remove credit from contributors are either insecure about their own value or deliberately obscuring where work originates. In either case, it's unethical and damaging. If you're doing substantive analytical work, your name should be on it, not hidden at the bottom in a small font, not attributed to team or department. Your name, clearly visible, attached to your work. And if you're in leadership, ensure the people doing the work get credited for it. When someone on your team builds a sophisticated model, don't present it as if it emerged from your brilliance. Credit them publicly. Specifically, that's not just ethical, it's how you retain talented people. The board member who noticed my name was missing said something important. When we make decisions based on financial analysis, I want to know who built the models and who's stand-up behind the conclusions. That accountability matters. Anonymous department attribution obscures accountability and misleads decision-makers about the source of insight. After the presentation, a woman in her 30s approached me. Ms. Martinez, I'm in a similar situation. My director regularly presents my data analysis to executives with no mention that I built the models. When I raised it with him, he said I was being too focused on individual credit and should be a team player. What should I do? Document your work. Save copies of models you build with your name and timestamp. Keep records of presentations where your analysis is used. Then decide, is this a manager who genuinely believes in team attribution, or is he taking credit for your work? How do I tell the difference? Ask yourself. Does he credit other team members by name when presenting their work, or is all work presented as Team effort? Does he acknowledge your contributions in settings where it doesn't cost him anything, like internal meetings? Does he support your visibility with senior leadership, or does he gatekeep access? He pretty much gatekeeps everything. We're not allowed to present directly to executives or join meetings where our work is discussed. That's a red flag. Leaders who develop their teams create opportunities for visibility. Leaders who are threatened by talented direct reports create barriers to visibility. You're dealing with the second type. So what are my options? First, continue documenting your work. That creates evidence if you need to escalate. Second, look for opportunities to create visibility outside your direct reporting line. Volunteer for cross-functional projects. Present at internal forums. Build relationships with other departments. Third, consider whether this is an organization that values and recognizes contributions, or whether you'd be better served finding somewhere that does. 2 years after my name was removed from my presentation, I was promoted to Vice President of Finance and Strategy. I now led all financial planning, analysis, and strategic finance functions for Meridian Technologies. One of my first initiatives as VP was implementing a formal attribution policy. All substantive analytical work must include clear individual attribution. Models, analyses, presentations. If someone created it, their name appears on it. The policy created some resistance from middle managers who'd grown comfortable presenting teamwork without crediting specific contributors. But I was firm. Accurate attribution isn't optional. If you're presenting work done by someone on your team, you credit them. If you can't credit them because you don't know who did the work, you're too disconnected from your team's actual contributions. 3 years after the board meeting incident, I ran into Richard at an industry conference. He approached me during the networking reception. "Elena, congratulations on your VP role." I saw the announcement. "Thank you, Richard." I wanted to say, the attribution situation at Meridian, that board meeting, I handled that poorly. Yes, you did. I was trying to create what I thought was a more professional presentation, Sainte Eoli. Department attribution, unified voice, less focus on individual credit. I didn't realize how it would be perceived, or that it would create the problems it did. Richard, it wasn't about perception. You systematically removed credit from the people doing substantive work. That's not professional presentation style. That's taking credit for other people's contributions. I wasn't trying to take credit. Intent doesn't matter as much as effect. The effect was that my work was presented as if it emerged from finance department leadership, rather than from my specific analysis. That's niche attribution, regardless of what you intended. I understand that now. For what it's worth, that experience taught me something about leadership and credit. I handle attribution very differently now. I'm glad you learned from it. But Richard, you learned because a board member called you out in front of the CEO and other board members. You didn't learn from me raising concerns or from reflecting on the ethics of what you were doing. You learned because you faced consequences. That's fair. I'm sorry it took that for me to understand the problem. If you've stayed with me through this entire story, I want you to understand something. This isn't about ego or being precious about credit. It's about the fundamental principle that people should be recognized for work they actually perform. When Richard removed my name from my financial analysis, he wasn't making a neutral decision about presentation style. He was obscuring the source of valuable work, making my contributions invisible, and creating the impression that strategic financial insight came from leadership rather than from the analyst who actually built the models. The board noticed before I could even raise the issue. They understood that accurate attribution matters, not just for fairness to contributors, but for accountability and governance. When board members rely on financial analysis to make decisions, they need to know who's behind that analysis and who stands behind the conclusion. If your work is being presented without your name, if leadership is taking credit for contributions you made, if your efforts are being made invisible, document it, raise it, and remember that talented people have options. Organizations that don't credit individual contributions eventually lose the people capable of making valuable contributions. If this resonates with you, hit that like button and subscribe. Share your experiences in the comments about having your name removed from your work or watching leadership take credit for your contributions. Those stories help others recognize they're not alone and that attribution matters. Remember, they removed my name from my work, thinking the board wouldn't notice or care. But the board noticed first, before I even said anything. They asked why directly, publicly, and persistently. And that question changed everything.